I'm Ron Johnson of RJ's Farm. Thanks for joining us today. As you can tell by the title, this topic is about connection, and I thought it pretty suiting that we did a talk about connection, being this coronavirus thing that is kind of keeping us apart. So we kind of need to connect in different ways. So I am going to make this about horsemanship and communication and but connection. If you're into horses, connection is important. So we're gonna take this into horsemanship, but also we're gonna take it into different understanding of what connection really is, because really what is a connection? What is connection? And quite simply, a connection is things that understand each other. They're able to communicate back and forth to each other, understanding each other. So, like when we make a phone call, and everybody, every person, every animal, everything has a code. Who they are is made up of a bunch of different things, and that is their personal code. Their emotional outlook, their way of thinking, they got a code. No different than everybody has a phone number. We got 10 digits and 11 if you have to dial the 1. And then overseas numbers. And if you're trying to call somebody and you don't put in all the numbers, you don't get their code just right, you're not going to get that phone call. You're not going to get them. You'll make a phone call, but you're going to get somebody else probably. So same thing when we're working with horses or trying to connect with somebody, a person, or whatever. You kind of have to get their code right. And you can get the code right, and maybe you've experienced this yourself. You dial that number and you make that phone call and you get a voicemail. Maybe they're too busy to be able to take the call. Maybe they're away from their phone. But maybe they see you on the on the caller ID, and they say, I don't want to talk to this person right now, right? And how that relates to horses is, if you come into the pen and you got your halter and you're walking over to them and they see you coming and they run, that's them ignoring your phone call, right? So don't be that person. Learn to be the person that when your horse sees you coming, they're excited. Be that person that when you make that phone call and someone sees you on their caller ID, that their thought is less of, oh crap, and more of a, oh great, and they want to take the call. And your connection, what you have for a connection, that is what's going to make that difference. The connection is the thought. What kind of a thought do you have about this person or this horse? How does this person think about you and feel about you? How does your horse think about you and feel about you? You know, so to make that connection and get an understanding, right? That's what's going to make the difference. That's what's going to give you the ability to connect. But before you can connect with anybody else, you've got to connect to yourself. You know, your heart center. Who are you? You know, do you live a life that you believe is true? Or are you putting up a front so nobody knows who you really are? You know, and if you are, that's fine. You know, nobody has to know the real you. But at least be honest with yourself and know that you're putting up a front. You know, and if that is who you want to be, take strides to become that. Don't just pretend, and then as soon as you get behind closed doors or out of sight from everybody else, say, "Ooh, I'm all done. I can go back to being me again." You know, of course, it's your life. You do what you want. That's totally fine. But the old saying that you have to love yourself first before you can love anybody else, that's true. And if you can't connect with yourself, the real you, how are you going to connect with the others? How are they going to connect with you? Because you're not even being honest with yourself, right? So you have to connect to the reality of you so they can connect with the reality of you. Because if you're not doing it, they won't do it either. So, you know, and again, connection is about thought. What do we think? How do we, we have connections to all kinds of things. We can be connected to a song. You know, if we hear a song and it makes us think of our life story, you know, we're going to connect and relate to that song. You know, we can connect and relate to a moment that reminds us of something, or an object that reminds us of something, or maybe you had a certain car as a teenager and you're driving down the road and all of a sudden one of the same color, same year, same make and model, it'll remind you of that. So you're connected to the make and model of that vehicle. We can also connect a thought to an object. And I do this all the time. You know, I'll go to bed at night sometimes and I'll think of something and I tell myself, oh, I got to remember that in the morning. So what I do is I connect that thought to the light switch in the bathroom, because every morning I get up, I go into the bathroom, flip the light switch. That's my first thing I do in the morning. So if I connect that thought to the light switch, when I turn the light on, it reminds me, right? So we can connect thoughts to objects. I've connected similar things to my slippers. Knowing that I'm going to put my slippers on in the morning, or I've connected thoughts to the door handle of my truck so that I did not leave without taking something with me that I'm supposed to bring. And we can do that because when we get to those places, we'll get a reminder because we connected a thought to the object. So, I'm sitting here today because this is my place in the world. This is a little spot in my yard that I love. This is my favorite place to go. And that happened over time. This is south facing tree line. We're in the shade now because the sun is setting over there. But you know, on the coldest of winter days, and the wind's blowing, as long as the sun's out, coming right here is always beautiful. I got this set up here. Sometimes we come out, we have coffee out here, we listen to the bird songs and the woodpeckers and the squirrels running around. This to me is my place to connect with everything, you know. And I don't know that it's a coincidence at all, really, but I got a pine tree right next to me. I don't know if you guys can see that. Maybe, hopefully the phone will pan. It does. This large pine tree right behind me here, that tree is my oldest memory on this property. When I came to look at this property back in October of 1988, I walked the whole place, checked the boundaries. This was wooded. Right behind the camera now was a snowmobile trail, and I remember this tree as I was walking down. The limbs were freshly cut so that they didn't hang over and get in the way for the snowmobilers, and I remember that tree, you know. At the time, I was more interested in the fact that the snowmobile went through so I could use it, but over time, the longer I live here and the more I spend out here, I've got a really big connection to this tree. And you know, it's my oldest memory of this property, and this is where I come when I want to just sit and think. You know, the horses are directly behind you. You know, the camera is maybe 30 feet, 40 feet, 50 feet max to the furthest horse away right now. So you may hear them chewing, or you know, you may hear them blowing wind or snooting, and who knows, maybe one will run one off. I don't know. But they're contently eating at the moment. But this is where I go to connect with everything, to connect to my thoughts. You know. And today, I'm using it to connect with you. I just felt like it was an appropriate place. Apologize for the emotions, but anybody who knows me knows I'm an emotional person, so I'm going to get myself out of it. Anytime I speak from the heart, sometimes chokes me up. I apologize. But connection. Let's get back to connection. We are connected to everything, right? And connection, everybody might, well, a lot of people will think about connection as, well, I don't have a connection with that person, or I don't have a connection with this horse. Everything is connected, and you cannot disconnect. Okay, so what is your connection? That's the question. You know, your connection might be reverse polarity, right? It might be repulsive, but it's a connection because it creates a thought and it's communicated, right? So there is a connection. If there is a response to your action, there's a connection, okay? It might just be a negative polarity. So if you take magnets, for instance, you know, if you put a north to north, it's going to push away. South to south is going to push away. But if you put north and south together, they're going to draw right in, right? But at the same time, if you had a magnet and you flipped one over so that south and south were facing each other, if you let go of the top one, it would flip itself over and connect, right? So, you know, we can change the polarity, right? And people use this in horsemanship, you know. They'll push a horse away in order to get it to want to come in, right? So, reversing the polarity. right? So connections work in that way. We can work with connections as long as you understand that you have connection. You are communicating something, but you got to learn, is it a yes or a no? Is it of the drawing or repelling? Is it willing or defiant? You know, what thought is connected to it, right? And if you know that, and if you take the time to figure that out, then you can make the changes to reverse the polarity, right? And so I use thought and energy a lot in a lot of my work. You know, I use a lot of Tai Chi principles and thought and energy. And you know, when you tell people that, they think, chi's fake, and you know, that's fine. People are welcome to their opinion, and that's totally fine. But you don't even have to believe in chi to understand certain energies can actually work in your favor. You know, gravity's real. Everybody knows and understands and believes in gravity, right? Balance is real, right? Because of gravity, right? So we understand how to maintain our balance, and some people are a little bit more effective than others. Some people lose their balance, you know, a little easier than others. You know, so balance, right? Inertia. We all know what it feels like to be going along in a car and somebody hits the brakes, you feel yourself coming off the seat, right? The faster you're going and the faster they try to stop, the more you feel that inertia, right? And, you know, same thing in the opposite. You're at a dead stop and somebody really hammers on that gas, you're going to get pressed back into that seat, right? You feel that. Those are energies that you can feel and relate to. So when we ride our horse and, you know, they're trotting, right? They're hopping along. We feel those energies, all of them. They all come into play, right? So we want to be able to connect to the energies and connect to the thoughts so that we can better understand the energies. And, you know, I want to say have a little more control, but it's not necessarily control. It's more connecting and thinking alike. You know, because if you go in and try to do something with a horse and they don't want to, they have a right to say no, you know. And for us to make them want to do it, that's not a good way to get a positive connection. You know, we might be able to get it done and get them to do it. But for me, the goal is to get them to want to do it and to want to be a part of things. So, you know, when I go in, you know, my goal is to go in and when my horse recognizes me, you know, bare minimum, softly bend in my direction, right? If they pop their head up and stick their chest out, well, I see resistance. What is that resistance telling me, right? So there is a connection there, and they are communicating to me, and I have to make sure that I keep all lines of communication open through that connection so that I can understand what are they trying to tell me. Because if I try to do something during a time when they're thinking something else or they're thinking about leaving me, you know, if they're thinking about leaving me and I put some push energy on them, even if my push energy is asking for the hind end to move over so that they can turn and face me, if they're thinking about leaving, that push energy is going to send them away because they're already thinking that way, right? So the connection will tell me what my energy is going to do, right? So, you know, make that connection and understand how to be connected. It's not just about what we want from them. It's what are they hearing from us, right? And at the same time, what are we hearing from them, right? That's really the bigger point. When I walk in, the first thing I do is look at the herd. I've got a herd of 6 going right now. They're all turned out together. And so when I come in, I am aware of each and every one of them. And if I'm going towards a horse that is a little maybe nervous or doesn't trust another horse, best example I can give you is Cimarron. If Luna comes by, he's going to lead, right? So if I'm walking to Cimarron and Luna's behind me, well, there's a good chance he's going to leave because she's behind me. But if I turn around and say, hey, Luna, you stay put, then Cimarron will say, hey, he's going to protect me, right? So I strengthen my connection with him because he knows he can trust me, and then he allows me to come in. And so I got to keep my connection to Luna, even though I'm not paying attention to her. I'm there to be with Cimarron. I still have to keep the lines open on Luna so I know what she's up to. Is she going to sneak around? And she's been known to do that. If you forget about her and somebody else is getting attention and she's not getting it, she might come right over and bite that horse and say, oh, no, you don't listen to him, you listen to me, right? So we want to make sure she can't do that, right? So I have to keep my connection with Luna even though I'm not there to connect with Luna. I have a similar problem with Stony. It's a little different with Stony, but it's very similar. Stony is my personal horse, so he just wants to come over and he's a pest. So if I'm giving another horse attention, he wants to come over, right? So he's totally connected to me. If I walk in and I got a halter and I'm there to pick, I'm working with somebody else, he comes over and he tries to put his nose in the halter. He wants to go. I can walk in carrying a saddle and all my gear, and he'll walk right over and position himself beside me and prepare for me to put that saddle on his back. The connection is that strong, So it goes back to what we were saying in the beginning, be that person that, when you're making that phone call to somebody and they see your name on that caller ID, you want to be the person that they are excited to answer that call, and Stony is that. When I come in, he is excited. He wants to go. He just wants to go play. He loves our work. We have so much fun, and I don't overwork him. I don't overstress him. And we have our moments. He's like any other horse. He has bad days. I have bad days. Sometimes it's my fault if things go sour. So the connections do weaken. They take maintenance. So we want to maintain our connections. No different than our phone lines going down the road. There are service crews out there on a regular basis, doing service checks and maintaining those phone lines. Now, I know we're doing cell phone towers now and everything's done wirelessly, but same thing. They got to maintain the towers and the connections to the towers. A lot of it goes through satellites. They got to maintain the satellites. Without that maintenance, connections are lost. And again, everything is connected. You cannot disconnect. No different than the moon can disconnect from the earth. It's going to keep circling around the earth. It can't disconnect. It's connected. It's got that relationship. The earth does the same thing around the sun as well as the rest of the planets. And our sun circles around the galaxy. It's moving. It's connected to the central sun. Everything is connected, and nothing can be disconnected. The only thing that can happen is that your connection can have a reverse polarity. And understanding that can help you manage it so that you don't end up getting yourself in trouble, or everything can be changed. Everything can be changed. You can make a connection stronger. You can turn a positive into a negative, as long as you understand how the energy works, because it is the energy that makes the connection. Are you repulsive, or are you inviting? Do people get that want to be next to you, or are you that person when people see you coming, they kind of stand off a little bit? And I know right now with the coronavirus thing, everybody's kind of, hey, keep your distance, so it doesn't count right now. But typically, what kind of a person are you? Are people drawn to you? Are they repelled by you? Because that tells you something. When your horse runs away from you, listen to that. Maybe it's because you worked them too hard the day before and they're a little sore, and they blame you for it, so they leave. Maybe it's because every time you come and get them, it's all work and they have to do things that they don't want to. You got to listen to it. If when you get a lot of people lunge their horses, beforehand, and I'm all for doing a little bit of lunging to warm up a horse if they're into sport activities and you want to get the blood flowing, and that's all fine. But if you're lunging your horse because they won't behave until you do 15 or 20 minutes of lunging, you don't have a connection. And you're more than likely, by doing that, creating that problem in the horse. Because you're going to get them, you're forcing them to work physically before they're prepared mentally. And the only reason it seems to work for you is because when it's over, they can relax. And then they get on to the normal stuff, right? So, you got to watch out for that. I'm not against lunging, and I'm not against round pen work. I'm not. But for those who have to run their horse for a while just to have a good ride, something's missing in your connection. You need to work on that. You shouldn't have to do that. Pretty much any time, I could give. I actually have. Back in 2014, I broke my ankle, and I couldn't ride for 6 weeks. Well, that first time I rode Stony, after that 6 weeks, and I got yelled at. My wife yelled at me because I wasn't supposed to be riding. But, I just couldn't sit on the couch any longer. I saddled up Stony, and I climbed on, and we stayed at a walk. But I was on a horse. I settled my mind. I managed and maintained that connection, because it was kind of hard to not be able to do anything. I'd go out on crutches and pet on them and stuff, but I wanted to go for a ride. Even though it was just a little bit of a walk, I wanted to go for a ride. And so 6 weeks off, doing nothing. But he was ready for me. I didn't have to lunge him. I didn't have to chase him around a round pen. In fact, I walked out there and just got him. And he was all ready, and I threw the saddle on, and I stepped up on my mountain block, and he swung right in as if he's been doing it forever, and I climbed on. And that's how it's supposed to be for everybody. A lot of people deal with a lot of things, and that's their connection. And some people may not realize that it can be better. Maybe they don't care, and it's and that's everybody has a different threshold. What they worry about, and some people don't feel it's a big deal if the horse dances around a little bit while you're trying to get on, and You know, if they throw a little bit of a fit when you first get on, as long as they come out of it after a few minutes, you know, they're okay with that. You know, to me, that's telling me something. That's telling me that I'm forcing a horse to do something that they don't want to do. And for me, personally, that's unacceptable. You know, and I'm not telling you it's unacceptable. You shouldn't do it either. You know, you got to do what you got to do, and what's best for you, and what works for you. I'm just saying it's not necessary, and because I know that, and I know how easy it is to fix it, I take care of it, and I no longer have that problem after a very short time. So rest assured that you can have that too. You know, you just got to do what you got to do to strengthen that connection. So, anyways, I think this went on long enough. I just wanted to again talk about connection, you know, and in light of the coronavirus thing, and you know, with distancing ourselves from everybody, I just wanted to talk about connection and connect with you through YouTube, so that you know, we can at least socialize, and hopefully I've given you some information. You know, I don't know everything. You know, I don't claim to know everything. I don't pretend to know everything. I've figured some things out, and I like to share what I've figured out with other people. You know, and you may know something different. You may even know something that might contradict something I said, or whatever. That's okay. You know, you know, I don't feel like I'm right in anything I say, and if you contradict me with what you say, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong, because if you think it, you believe it. So you have a reason to believe it, and I'm going to try and figure out what brought you to that conclusion before I say, oh no, you're wrong, you got to do it like I said. No, you believe it for a reason, right? And I'm going to try and figure that out and figure out why, and then I'll kind of weigh them together, and you know, I might still say, well, you know, that's not for me, but you know, makes sense for you. You know, and that is totally possible, right? Why do people argue? It's unnecessary. So, anyways, I'm going to call it quits now, and I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this, and I really do hope